What's going on, guys, and welcome to episode 530 of #AskGSM here today for Wednesday, January 24th, 2024. I am Graham GSM Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well and having a great week. So I mentioned this in last week's episode. I did not announce this going into last week's episode beforehand, saying that, if you send in a question, I might answer it next week. I mentioned it on last week's show. I'm recording this the same time I'm recording last week's show for a bit of a mindfuck there. I am currently in Orlando / Florida, Tampa, whatever it might be, as this goes up on Wednesday. I've done this before whenever I've gone away for trips and whatever. I've recorded 2 episodes in one. I actually did not know while recording last week's show that I had so many questions. I figured why not just separate it into 2. I honestly planned on just recording while I was away. But you guys sent in so many great questions, I figured why not just separate it into 2 different episodes. As one episode, it was like an hour and 15 minutes, which is not uncommon here for the show. But I figured why not use that for 2 separate shows. So I went back, chopped up the show. If it sounds weird, that's why. Half of the questions were answered last week. The other half were answered today. So if you had some of your questions answered last week or none of your questions answered last week, they're going to be answered here today. So that's why. Thank you guys for the support of the show. I appreciate it. We'll be back to a normal schedule next week. I'm not typically doing this sort of stuff, only a few times a year, if that. So I appreciate you sticking with me. But if you want to send in a question to the show every single week, not for this week because this is pre-recorded, but you can do so by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the hashtag AskGSM. Find me on Facebook as well, facebook.com/Graham.GSM.Matthews. Drop a comment. I usually post on Tuesday nights, if not in the wall itself. Last but certainly not least, drop your question down below in the comment section on this very video. I'll include your question in next week's edition. Now let's get right into it with the first question from Christopher L. from Facebook. Cora Jade has recently gotten the injury bug by being diagnosed with a torn ACL, which will keep her out for most of the year, which is a shame because she was just cleared to compete and probably was going to be the one to take the belt from Lyra Valkyria. A move I would not have been a fan of, but that was probably the plan. That's what he said. There have also been reports in the past of multiple injuries that have taken place within the PC. Which side do you put the blame on? The house show schedule, the PC training, or the wrestlers themselves? Now, we're just talking strictly NXT, because I know people on the main roster have had injuries as well. Charlotte, Rollins injured his knee on Monday. Hopefully nothing too serious. We'll find out. But yeah, a lot of women have gotten injured. I mean, even Bayley got injured at the PC training a few years ago for, I think, Money in the Bank 2021. I don't remember if it was a knee injury. I think that was a shoulder injury. But there's been a lot of ACL injuries in NXT. Cora Jade got injured in a match. I think the other women got injured training. I could be wrong on that. I don't remember. But probably is a PC thing itself. I mean, sometimes there's just bad luck. I mean, if Cora Jade got injured in the match, maybe it was a part of the training that she was doing at the PC. You would think they would have learned their lesson by now, and they're only just now looking into it. I mean, a lot of women have gotten hurt in the past year plus. You think they would have done this sooner. But, regardless, at least they're looking into it now. It might be, I don't know if it's the house show schedule, because they don't really have a lot of house shows, let's be honest. NXT doesn't have a lot of house shows. It's probably, because WWE does more shows, and they're on the road more than NXT is. So I would imagine it's not really a road thing or a schedule thing. It's more of a training thing, I would imagine. They have to look at how they're training these women with the knee stuff specifically and the regimens they're having them do, because that might be playing a role in that. I don't know how many men have gotten hurt in NXT from doing this stuff. It seems to just be the women. So whoever's training the women, they need to look into that. It might not be any one thing, but it is worth looking into because it's happened enough now where it can't just be a coincidence. That's the thing. And they're not just like, this person got hurt doing this person has a broken orbital bone, or this person broke their wrist or whatever. No, like a lot of these women have gotten hurt with ACL injuries and have been out for a long time because of it. And ACL injuries take a long time to heal. Nikita Lyons just came back, but Wendy Chu is still out. Sol Rook is still out. Cora Jade's going to be out for a long time. And that sucks. So, they probably should look into that. The house show schedule may have something to do with it. I would probably imagine it is the training thing. But again, it probably isn't just one thing. It might also just be a coincidence. But that's a lot of ACL injuries to come out of just one brand that rigorously trains their women with a certain regimen at the PC, and more so than any other company. I mean, AEW has injuries and WWE's main roster has injuries and whatnot, but they're all not doing the same training schedule like the PC would be with their NXT superstars. Your next question, what are your favorite Elimination Chamber matches? My all-time favorite will always be the 2002 Survivor Series, which is also one of my favorite matches of all time. I also love the 2017 one with Bray Wyatt winning the title, but I feel a lot of these matches, especially the 2003 SummerSlam one with Goldberg losing to Triple H, usually are booked very questionably and usually polarizes the audience. What are your favorite Elimination Chamber matches and your least favorite? My least favorite, just off the top of my head, that 03 one, I haven't seen it many times, but it's got to be one of the worst ones. If only for the finish. The match itself isn't awful, but that 03 one is not talked about as being one of the better ones because some of those early ones were great. The 02 one is probably still my favorite. That one, the 2017 one you mentioned, might be one of the best ones they've ever done. I'll throw one at you too, a recent one. The most recent one from last year with the men, excuse me, the one with the United States Championship on the line from Elimination Chamber 2023. Again, won't be talked about at the same level as the other ones because it didn't have the same star power, although you had Rollins in there. There weren't a lot of top-tier stars beyond Rollins, but it was an excellent match. Montez Ford had time to shine. Bronson Reed was in there. Austin Theory obviously retained the championship. Johnny Gargano, and I believe another person. That was an excellent match, though. I really, really enjoyed that one. So I haven't gone back and watched it since I was there, and that was the first and only Elimination Chamber match I've been in attendance for, aside from the women's one that same night, which was also really good. It would probably be any of those three are my top favorite. The 02 one, the 2017 one for the WWE Championship. Bray Wyatt winning was just the cherry on top. And then the United States Championship one from just last year, Elimination Chamber 2023. As for my least favorite, like I mentioned, the 03 one would be a contender. A lot of them just blend together. The 2014 one was also quite good for the WWE Championship. Hated the finish with Orton retaining and beating Bryan, but they had to do that to set up WrestleMania, whatever. And also the interference. Any interference in these chambers I just fucking hate because it completely defeats the purpose of the chamber. Although Shawn Michaels getting involved in the 2010 one to cost Undertaker the World Heavyweight Championship was quite cool. I'm trying to think of any other ones that really stand out. The 2011 one, actually, I always forget about. That one was among my favorites as well. It was for they had one, two number one contenders ones. They weren't for any championships, but the winners would earn the title shots at WrestleMania for the World Heavyweight Championship. The SmackDown one was for the World Heavyweight Championship. The main event was for a shot at the WWE Championship at WrestleMania. The World Heavyweight title one, the SmackDown one, I fucking love that match. So, I take back what I say earlier. The 2023 one, I'll probably remove that one and put the 2011 one in there. I love that Elimination Chamber. But there's a lot of good ones. The ones from 08 I liked. The 09 ones are okay. The 2010 ones are okay. The 2012 ones were solid. 2013 was solid. 2014 I thought was great. The worst one, honestly, I think I've ever seen, the 03 one I mentioned, that's not the worst one. I think by far the worst Elimination Chamber match I've ever seen. The women's one were pretty good. The women's ones were all mostly pretty good from 2018 up until last year. Worst one, Elimination Chamber 2015. There's been a few. There were two on that show. I hated both chamber matches. One was for the tag titles. One is for the vacant Intercontinental Championship. That vacant Intercontinental Championship Elimination Chamber fucking sucked. It felt like everything was going wrong. It was a giant mess. The tag team one earlier in that show was a mess too. They did another tag team one in 2020 that was fine, but that Intercontinental Championship one from 2015 might be the worst one I've ever seen. And I was happy with the outcome. I was happy Ryback won and became champion. But the match itself was not very good at all. Next question also from Chris. As mentioned last week, it seems that we have an idea with what Jack Perry is doing with that cool angle of him in New Japan Pro Wrestling with the attack of Shota Umino and ripping up his AEW contract after the attack. How do you think this will lead to him returning to AEW? I don't know. Like you said, you literally just asked last week, what's next for Jack Perry? I said, I don't know. What I do know is that when he does come back to AEW TV, I would pair him with Anna Jay. I know she's kind of like a babyface right now. I don't know. She was a babyface in that match with Julia Hart last Saturday at Battle of the Belts. I'm not sure what she's supposed to be, but I think pairing those two, if they are still legitimately together in real life, I would pair those two together on TV. And no, he went to New Japan instead, showing up at their Battle of the Valley show on Saturday night. I don't watch New Japan, so I'm not really going to take, follow tabs or whatever. Keep tabs, that's the expression. Keep tabs on what Jack Perry's doing over there aside from what I see in social media. But I think it's cool, like an excursion of sorts. They don't have any plans for him right now in AEW. Why the fuck not? It's something different. It keeps him busy. It's a different landscape. Maybe he can go after... I know he just lost the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship. Maybe he can go after Sonata. Sonata beat him to retain that championship at Forbidden Door last year. Maybe he's better about that. As far as like what gets him back to AEW after he ripped up his contract in kayfabe, obviously. Seemingly. I don't know what that was. His contract, whose contract, I have no fucking clue. At the show last Saturday, I don't really know what you do to introduce him. Maybe he's a part of Forbidden Door later this year. I can't imagine he'll be gone from AEW that long. But I'm not really sure. I guess time will tell. I really don't know how you reintroduce him, but we'll see what he does in the meantime and what he can do to kind of reinvent himself or kind of... He looked fucking homeless with that beard when he showed up on Saturday, but I guess we'll see what he can do. I think Jack Perry's good, and he has potential, but if they don't have a plan for him right now in AEW, then having him do something else entirely over in New Japan isn't a bad idea either. At Micah Does It from YouTube, once Roman Reigns drops the title to whoever, preferably Cody, he says, do you think we will get another world title reign, or should he just be remembered for the 3-year title reign and never be champion again? I mean, listen, I would be content if Roman Reigns was never champion again after this. I'm kind of Roman Reigns out at this point from him being champion. And that's not even considering, it's not like he held the championship once for 3 years. He was also champion in 2015, 2016, 2018. He didn't win it again until 2018. Was that it? I think he lost the championship. I mean, he didn't lose the championship. He had leukemia, so he had to vacate it. And he didn't get it back until he turned heel. So he hasn't been champion a whole lot. I mean, he is like a 5-time champion. Maybe 6-time now that he won the WWE title last year. It's not like he's only had this run. He's been champion a fair amount of times over the course of his career. My point is, if he never holds another run again, never has another run as world champion, I would be perfectly content with that. I'm not expecting that, though. I do think at some point Roman Reigns, it's not like the guy's 50 or 60 years old. I do think at some point Roman Reigns will be champion again, probably as a babyface. If and when that day comes when Roman Reigns is a babyface again, he probably will at that point be world champion. Maybe, hopefully not for another few years. I would not put another championship on Roman as a part-timer anytime soon. But that's probably something they do again down the road. And I could totally see it. I'm fully expecting it at this point. Jordan B. from YouTube, their question was, which 2 wrestlers from any promotion would you like to see get in a promo battle? Some combinations I would like to see in the future are MJF and The Miz, CM Punk and LA Knight, and John Cena and Trick Williams. Also babyface Miz and heel LA Knight promo battle just for the different dynamic. And plus, I really enjoyed the Miz and LA Knight feud in August. Yeah, I thought it was a good feud too. Yeah, the switching the roles with Miz and Knight would be interesting. Now that Miz is a babyface, maybe at some point LA Knight turns heel. But yeah, I think the ones that you mentioned would be fun. MJF and Miz. I almost said MJF and like Cody. Like, I'm thinking of the top talkers right now in WWE. I think Punk and Owens at some point, that's a WWE. Like, they're both in WWE. But a lot of the people you mentioned are already in WWE. You mentioned Punk and LA Knight. Punk and Owens at some point could be fun. Would be fun. Will be fun. I think we do get that at some point. I think Punk wants to work with him. That was the report about a year ago. I'm trying to think of like cross-promotional like promo battles that would be interesting. MJF and I'm trying to think. MJF and Cody we've seen, and Punk as well. But those would both be, in a different environment. They would probably be weaker than they were in WWE or in AEW, but it would still be worth doing again in AEW. Eddie Kingston and Kevin Owens would be cool because I kind of feel like those characters are similar. Eddie Kingston, the babyface, Kevin Owens, the heel. I feel like that'd be a great dynamic. I keep going back to MJF. MJF and I'm trying to think who else is in WWE. MJF and like LA Knight would be interesting if they really let LA Knight loose. Because LA Knight said in an interview recently with Chris Van Vliet that he had trouble. He didn't like the Miz promo battle, the one that was actually pretty good on Raw. He didn't like it. And he has slipped up on his lines a lot in the last couple of, not recent promos, but like when he was talking almost every week over the summer and into the fall. Because he has to remember a lot of stuff to say. And he wasn't down to an exact script. Maybe he was, I don't know. But he likes to kind of go off of what he's feeling in the moment. And I was surprised that he said that because he wasn't really burying the creative process, but it's like taking a shot at WWE almost. And I'm like, that's interesting. And he's right. I mean, when you kind of organically feel it, that usually makes for a better promo than what, than them scripting something out for you or whatever ahead of time. So an LA Knight Unleashed with MJF Unleashed would be really interesting. Cena and Williams you mentioned would be cool. That would be fun if Cena started rapping again like it's fucking 2002 or 2003. And Williams is just great as it is. I feel like those two might have good chemistry on the mic. Yeah, any number of combinations. Those are, the ones that you mentioned and also some of the ones that I mentioned as well. No L from Facebook. Who should be Will Ospreay's first opponent in AEW when he arrives? I think we mentioned this last week. I think it was at Iwagu91. It should be Bryan Danielson. I think Bryan Danielson makes the most sense. I don't think he's got anything going on right now in AEW. He just lost to Okada at Wrestle Kingdom. He failed to win the Continental Classic. He's not really doing anything. I'm not even sure if he's appeared in AEW programming so far in 2024. But I would have it be Ospreay and him at Revolution and have Ospreay go over, obviously, because that's the dream match. And we don't know how much longer Bryan Danielson's going to go. We know his full-time run he intends to wrap up later this year. You could say, oh, that's the match to do it all in, but what if it's Danielson and McGuinness? Because I know McGuinness really wants that match. Danielson probably wants that match. Tony Khan has probably wanted to do that match. He probably wanted to do it last year if Bryan Danielson could go. So you can't do it there, and Ospreay might be competing for the championship on that show. That might seem too soon, but listen, they're in fucking England. He's the star as Ospreay. I don't see why not. Put him in the main event. But yeah, I would probably do Danielson and Ospreay for Ospreay's official in-ring AEW debut at Revolution. Christopher L. from Facebook, his first question was, have you ever seen the movie Vision Quest? I think it's the greatest wrestling movie ever made with an amazing soundtrack featuring Journey, Dio, Madonna, and Rio Speedwagon. It has some of the 1980s tropes, rather. And the ending is predictable yet thrilling. If you haven't seen it, would you like a link to see the movie? No, I have not seen it. And yes, why not? I think I've heard of the movie. I didn't know it was a wrestling movie, but sure. Be sure to send me the link either here through Facebook or Twitter or whatever it might be, and I'll have to make time to check it out at some point in the not too distant future. Your second question: who do you see more of as the complete package, Triple H or Chris Jericho? For me, it's a tough one. Triple H was very good in the ring, and while there's no denying his relationship with Stephanie and especially with Vince, got him a lot of opportunities over others who would probably have deserved it more. He busted his ass to be the best wrestler he could and had more excellent matches throughout his career. Chris Jericho did not have those same perks, and he worked in more organizations in North America, Japan, Mexico, and many other countries. Both men led two stables in different organizations. Both men were huge stars in the Attitude and Ruthless Aggression eras, and both men had fantastic feuds with the likes of the men of Shawn Michaels, Chris Benoit, Kurt Angle, and many others. While both men have had immensely successful careers, I will give the slight edge to Jericho. The reason is his style of promo and his ability to adapt and get the littlest of things over, puts him over at a slightly higher level of creativity than Triple H. Who do you pick for this one, and what are your thoughts? No, that's a great question. It is tough. If you say Triple H, I don't think you're wrong. I would have to go Jericho too, and that's not just because Jericho's like one of my favorites and has been for, a long time. I just think I would go with Triple H, but like when it really comes down to substance, Triple H was amazing. I don't think he was ever the same after the injury he sustained in 2000. 2000 was the injury he sustained in 01. After 01, he had a lot of success in WWE in 02 and beyond, but a lot of those periods, they were either really, really good or really fucking bad. At least Jericho was more consistent. Triple H was more of the guy. They weren't going to build a company around Jericho. Triple H had the look. He obviously was a higher ranking person in the company. He fucking runs the place now. But Jericho could reinvent himself better. He could have better matches, better promos. I probably would go Jericho as the more complete package. If he was taller and had more muscle mass, then he probably would be a complete shoo-in for a total better complete package than Triple H. But Triple H had the look. The guy was the quintessential pro wrestler. Especially, if he came up in like the 80s or 90s, he would be even better, even more successful than he was. But there were other people that around that same time that could wrestle circles around him because Triple H, again, he was the man in 2000, but he just wasn't the same after the quad injury in 01. And Jericho, say what you will of his work now, and justifiably so, but he's had a consistent string of just great career runs and matches and some of the greatest matches of all time. Triple H too, but Jericho even more so. And promos as well, character work, face, heel. Triple H could be very fucking boring at times. From like 01 or 02 through whenever he wrapped up like his full-time career in 2009, 2010. It was very hit or miss. Jericho, you could expect a lot more from him. He was the better pro wrestler in the ring, but he could also cut better promos and he could be a top guy. He wasn't like just a mid-card guy. So I would probably go Jericho, but if you give the edge to Triple H, I can kind of understand that as well. Your next question. What are some of the funniest pro wrestling segments that you've seen in the past 10 years? I don't know. In WWE, I mean, the well runs dry because the company was creatively bankrupt for such a long time. I will say this is no longer 10 years old. It's now like 10 years plus 3 or 4 months years old. A lot of the funniest moments have not happened in the past 10 years. Like, I think of, and I wasn't a fan for this, but like the DX impersonation of the McMahons, I wasn't watching at the time, but I watched on the Best of Raw, like 15th anniversary DVD that counted down the best moments in Raw history, and that was on there, and I thought that was just the fucking funniest thing, was when Triple H impersonated Vince and Shawn Michaels impersonated Shane McMahon. I thought that was great. But that was in 06. The Tea Time with Santino thing gets a lot of love. That was a well-done segment from 2010 during an otherwise awful period for WWE. You have that. There was an Elimination Chamber, not match, but I don't know why. It was like a fucking debate before Elimination Chamber 2012. I just rewatched it recently with R-Truth doing his thing on Raw right now. The man hasn't aged at all, but they had a debate before Chamber 2012 with Punk, Miz, Jericho, Kofi, Dolph, and Truth. I don't know why I can remember all 6 guys, but it was just fucking funny. Like, Miz was getting all mad and fed up, and Kofi kind of had his moment to shine. Truth was funny. Ziggler played it off really well. Punk was great. That was pretty fucking funny. Again, not 10 years old. I can't really think of much in the past, like, 10 years, honestly, that I thought was really funny. I feel like they try a lot of things that they think are funny that are just not that funny. Anything, I guess, with Team Hell No is really entertaining. Again, not 10 years old. I think of the just over 10 years old. I was going to mention this a moment ago. The TNA funeral for the Aces and Eights. That was from November, I think, of 2013. A week or two after they killed off the faction on the show. They officially ended the group. And they had a legit funeral for the group on TNA Impact. One of the funniest segments in TNA history. It was fucking hysterical. That would be up there, but again, none of those are 10 years old, so I can't really accurately answer your question. At Reborn Again, John Ritland from the Twitter machine, and on YouTube, Real Honesty with John Ritland. Check out his content, his great work. His first question was, so who could you see being the dark horse pick for each Rumble and why? I mean, my main picks, spoiler alert, are CM Punk and Bayley. I'll mention that next week during the prediction show, but my picks are CM Punk and Bayley. Dark horses for the women's, I'm going to say Liv Morgan. I've said that before. I feel like Liv and Rhea makes a lot of sense. I mean, even for Mania, I've said that before too. I think Becky's the bigger match. But Liv, I would not count out entirely. She may not even be back in the match itself, but she could be back and she could win the whole thing after losing to Rhea in the Rumble last year. Let's not forget about that. They've had a long history. They work well together. I would not honestly be opposed to that. So Liv Morgan. And for the men, probably Gunther. I mean, we counted out, he was one of the odds-on favorites 6 months ago, but then Punk came back and kind of threw everything for a loop. Everyone has their eyes on Punk and Cody and all these other guys. I would say Gunther's up there as well. I don't think he's going to win. The Rock, I don't know if he's a dark horse. Rock winning would be fucking terrible. No thanks. People would pop. I would pop knowing he's there because I've never seen The Rock in person before at a wrestling show, or just in period, really, and just in general, really. But then I would realize, oh, fuck, he's winning. So no thanks. But I don't know if you would call Rock a dark horse, but I would maybe call Gunther a dark horse. I don't think he's going to win at all. But you never know. Maybe he drops the championship right afterward, or he goes on to Mania, like we saw in 1990, as the Intercontinental Champion and the challenger for the World Heavyweight Championship after losing last year. It's possible. So I'm going to say Gunther and Liv Morgan. Your next question, what do you think of WWE going to a two-man commentary team? Should AEW follow suit? I think the issue with AEW is that at this point, they should, but they have so many commentators, I don't know if they want to dwindle down their teams and get rid of anyone. Like Collision, I thought was great when it was just Kevin Kelly and Nigel McGuinness. And now they have, Ian Ricky Bonney isn't even there anymore, I don't think. It's fucking Tony Schiavone, and I like Tony Schiavone, but I don't know. I don't really think he needs to be on commentary. Jim Ross is barely there anymore. Does he do Rampage full, like the entire show? I don't remember. Is Jericho still doing commentary on Rampage? Again, I don't remember, but if he is, get him the fuck off. Excalibur is their voice of AEW, so I don't really see him going anywhere. But if it was just Excalibur and Taz, I would have no issue with that for Dynamite. I would like to see them go to a two-man team. They have so many shows. I would like to see them go to a two-man team. I doubt they will, but that's personally what I would want to say. For WWE going to a two-man commentary team, I like it a lot. The only reason they added Michael Cole, and I was kind of bothered at the time because I liked the two-man booth, and Michael Cole was on both shows, and I liked Michael Cole's work, but I don't want him to be overexposed. I didn't like it because, for those reasons, but it was really just done to give Kevin Patrick more experience. So now the report is, it's kind of It's either sink or swim for him now, where if he doesn't really do well on his own without Michael Cole and the training wheels there, then he might get booted from the spot and replaced by, most likely, Vic Joseph, who he's a better commentator than Kevin Patrick. I like them both, but Vic Joseph just isn't really interesting to me either. I like Tom Phillips more than Vic Joseph. I think Vic Joseph is fine. I liked him a lot more a few years ago, but he just kind of, I don't know. He just isn't really overly interesting to me. I guess none of the commentators are really overly interesting. It's not about the commentators, obviously. But even Tom Phillips, I thought was better in the role than, as like the voice of WWE, than Vic Joseph or Kevin Patrick, in my opinion. But we'll see. I like the Raw team a lot. Cole and Barrett are great. They have a really good chemistry together. Cole and Pat McAfee had great chemistry, too, on SmackDown when they were still doing their thing every week. But McAfee's off saying some dumb shit on his show right now, so he's probably not coming back anytime soon to that role. He probably is done in that role on a full-time basis. But Barrett and Cole make perfect sense as the SmackDown duo, or as the Raw duo. Just the two of them. They work really well together. And the SmackDown team isn't bad. I like Corey Graves, but Kevin Patrick might need to step it up, otherwise he's gone. At noob_n_co TV, your question was, what are your thoughts on the NWA being on the CW app? Will it be a huge success or a failure to launch? What is next for some of the NWA stars? EC3's reign continues, new stars being built, and as for Natalia Markova, should she move on from the NWA women's title? I mean, she's gotten so many title shots so far in the NWA and has not won a single one. She should probably move on from the promotion entirely, but that's just my opinion, assuming someone were to hire her. As far as the NWA being on the CW app, I hope it works out well for them. I don't really see it changing much. I prefer it on YouTube just because it's easier for me. I don't give a fuck about downloading an app and watching the show there. That's not really all that inconvenient, but it's not like you're signing up for a service or something like that. Like fucking Honor Club, that's just dumb. Like, who's going to pay $10 for Honor Club? That's ridiculous. The show is not worth $10. That's a whole other issue. Yeah, that's fine. I mean, listen, if they get more money from it, that's cool. It seems like they fucked themselves out of a TV deal with the CW with what they did at the Saw When pay-per-view a couple months ago. I mean, that's so just dumb that whole thing even happened. I mean, they just buried themselves with that. Just a fucking self-own on Billy Corgan's part. But I hope it works out well and they get more exposure and they can kind of continue on to this new era of the company. Listen, as long as Tyrus is not champion anymore, anything is better than that. At Iwagu91, their first question was, did you notice that Malachi Black had 0 singles matches in AEW last year? I did notice that. I mentioned that before. It's fucking inexcusable. It's absolutely egregious that this man will not have a single singles match in 2023 on AEW television. I mean, what the fuck are we even doing here? If his contract is up this year, if he doesn't leave, I would be stunned. I would be stunned. They have done nothing with this guy. He's been there for almost 3 years. Okay, he was the Trios champion. Who gives a shit? I mean, how has he not had one singles match? Buddy Matthews had singles matches. Brody King had a whole lot of them. Why not Malachi? It's not like they're protecting him. If they were protecting him, that would imply they were building him up. They haven't built him up at all. That doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. The Average Grunt from Twitter, his first question was, one more out of season Survivor Series question for you. What are the odds that Brock Lesnar will be booked in another Survivor Series elimination match or even a War Games match? Slim to none. I feel like if it was going to happen, it would have happened by now. Brock's been back in the company for, 12 years now as of this April? He has not had a single tag team match. They teased it with him and Cody against Roman and Solo in the post-WrestleMania Raw. Obviously, that did not come to fruition earlier in last April. If they were going to do it, they would have done it by now. Brock is just not the type of guy they put in tag matches. They're not going to. I mean, that might be an attraction. It would be. I'm not saying they shouldn't. I just don't think they would because they probably would have done it by now. Like any Survivor Series that he was a part of the Raw versus SmackDown bullshit, he was always having singles matches on those shows. There was a reason they did not put him in the tag team matches because he wasn't getting beat, and they wanted him to be an attraction on his own. Because, I mean, if whatever team he's on, he's probably winning. That's also another issue as well. His second question, would you ever be open to the Royal Rumble going 2 nights like WrestleMania? I think out of all the other shows that could do that with, the Royal Rumble makes the most sense. 1 men's world title match, 1 women's world title match, and a Rumble each night. You are right in that if they were to do it with any other show on their calendar currently, it would make sense to do with the Rumble. That being said, I would not do that. Now, I have said on the show before, I would not want a 2-night WrestleMania. I feel like it waters it down. It should be a one-night extravaganza, blah, blah, blah. And then they did it, and I love the idea. Now I actually do not want to go back to a one-night WrestleMania. They make more money out of it, too. That's a whole other thing as to why they do it. As a fan, I like the idea of a 2-night WrestleMania. It means that we're not sitting there for 7 hours straight. It gets more people on the card, spreads the love a little bit. But that being said, I like it as, like, even New Japan, to my knowledge, I don't watch New Japan a lot, so correct me if I'm wrong. Even they didn't do it this year, but even when they did that, they only did it with Wrestle Kingdom. They didn't have their big events spread out over the course of 2 days. I know they have, like, different tournaments spread out over the course of a couple days, but, like, their big pay-per-views and whatever, big events, it was only Wrestle Kingdom. So I would only have it be WrestleMania. I think the Royal Rumble, it's not an awful idea. You're right. You could do one Rumble one night, one Rumble the other night. I don't know. The Women's Rumble is a big deal, and it would be cool if it went on last. I know it went on last in 2018. I think people are just more interested in the Men's Rumble, to be honest with you. I don't know. I just feel like for a lot of people, that's the bigger attraction, so that might also affect things. If you do the Men's Rumble on one night, more people might be more inclined to watch that one than the Women's one. I don't know if that's 100% true, but I feel like there is a bigger audience for the Men's Rumble, so whatever night the Women's Rumble is on, they may not care about as much. It's not the same thing as, we're going to have the women headline night one at WrestleMania, and that's not going to have as much interest. That's different, because, a singles women's title match is much more of an attraction than, like, a Women's Rumble, for example. It's an exciting match, but, like, the Men's Rumble is what people really typically look forward to more, and that's the bigger attraction. It's been around longer, so I wouldn't do it. And not even just that, like I said, I just feel like it's more special with just WrestleMania. You don't have to do every pay-per-view being 2 nights. That's just excessive. So, could it happen? Maybe. Do I see it happening? No. Would I want it to happen? No. At E13A, final few questions here from them. Do you have any strong thoughts on spinner belts? I don't like them. The WWE title one, someone else said this on Twitter recently. If you like the spinner belt, that is like prime middle school you, which is so right. Like, I liked that belt when I was in middle school, early high school. That is it. Otherwise, I did not like the spinner belt. I prefer what we have now with the stationary championship or whatever. I prefer that. Even the U.S. title belt that John Cena had, I never liked that championship. I always preferred the other version of the United States Championship, or even the one that we have now, over John Cena's spinner belt. So I've never really been a big spinner belt fan personally. Second question, related question. Did you know that Edge sketched over his own design of the WWE Championship before he found out he was just getting a modified spinner? I may have known that. I feel like I heard him say that before in like a DVD or an interview or something. That does suck, though, that he thinks that he thought that he was getting his own title design, and then they just gave him the fucking spinner belt with just the R in the middle. I guess it's better than nothing, and people remember that belt, but that is pretty disappointing, though. I'm sure he was disappointed, too. And that's going to do it, guys, for episode 530 of #AskGSM here today for Wednesday, January 24th, 2024. As I mentioned earlier, if you sent in a question last week and did not hear it answered here, I probably answered it in last week's episode, so check that out when you can. If you sent in a question this week, I obviously am recording this ahead of time, so I did not see it. I did not answer it. I apologize. If it's still relevant next week, I can include it in next week's edition. Speaking of which, if you want to send in a question to the show, you can do so by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the hashtag AskGSM. Find me on Facebook as well, facebook.com/graham.gsm.matthews. Drop a comment on the post I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below in the comment section on this very video. I'll include your question in next week's edition. Have an awesome one, guys. Enjoy Royal Rumble week, Royal Rumble weekend. I will be there, so hoping to post content from Tampa. So stay tuned here on the channel and my social media channels for more on that. Have an awesome one, guys. I'm Graham GSM Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.